This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Coming to you from Beijing, this is China 24, a look at China and its impact around the world. I'm Zhong Shi on our broadcast today. China's economic indicators show uneven recovery. We take a look at the numbers and how it impacts development strategy. Xinjiang residents hit back at the West's groundless accusations of human rights violations. Real-life celebrities bring in the bucks, and so do these virtual idols in an industry that's nearing $1 billion in income. And just what do Doraemon and a dinosaur have in common? We find out later on China Bus. First up today, China's central authorities have released new guidelines on building Shanghai's Pudong New Area into a pioneer of socialist modernization. The guidelines aim to make the Pudong New Area a trailblazer of innovation and modern governance. They aim to make Pudong more competitive and accelerate its development as an international financial center. By 2035, Pudong should have a completely modernized economic system. And by 2050, it should be an important center for creativity, competitiveness, and influence around the world, and a global model of urban governance. For more insight into this story, I'm now joined by Liu Zhiqin, Senior Fellow at Renmin University's Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies. Mr. Liu, welcome to the program. Now, first of all, why is Pudong the focus of these very exciting guidelines?
It's not a surprising decision for us to know that Pudong is again chosen as the pioneer leading area for China. Because as we know that in the past 30 years, Pudong has always played a very key and essential and a very important role in China's reform and opening up. Especially, I see that Pudong has always been as a navigator in China's economic system development, especially for the further opening up policy processing. Because in the past 30 years, Pudong has gathered all kinds of experiences and management improvement, and also business environment has been greatly improved and upgraded. From financial sector, Pudong area is also become the most important financial basis in the world, especially the competitiveness and opening up and openness and also inclusiveness for Pudong has become the most attractive destination for the whole world, especially for global investment. So that's why now central government has chosen Pudong again as a pioneer area for China's socialism construction. In this way, that we can see that Pudong will play more important role in the future.
I take it that Pudong has already been a pioneer in China's economic sphere and the financial sector. But with these new guidelines in place now, Mr. Liu, how does this relate to the drive for socialist modernization? What does this mean for Pudong going forward and the rest of China?
You know, the significant meaning for Pudong development is not only for Shanghai area, but also for the whole world, for China, for the rest of China. As we know that we try to build up a socialism with Chinese characteristics, Pudong is the best example for China to know it. Because in the past 30 years, Pudong has gathered all these experiences and also different kinds of management from the global market. They have different international, transnational companies there. So that's why they became now the first-hand and the first-class financial center in the world. So in this way, it has a significant influence, not only for Chinese domestic construction, but also for the global future. Also for the rest of the country, that it has a significant navigating role that to guide the development of the whole country, whether we should do more efforts to strengthen the socialism foundations, and also how to make the gap narrower between rich and the poor, how we develop the socialist modernization in a Chinese way, that the Pudong really has a great effort that to do its best to gather new experiences and have more fundamental, significant role for the rest of the country. So I hope that Pudong will do its best and utmost in terms of the socialist construction.
Mr. Liu, appreciate your analysis. Do stay with me here on the program. I'll be circling back to you later on. The world economy is slowly starting to recover from COVID-19, though in an uneven way. China is no different, as the country's recovery is also showing signs of an unbalanced recovery. CGTN's Liu Zhiqin has the latest details on the economy from a State Council Information Office news conference held in Beijing on Thursday.
China's GDP grew at 12.7% year-on-year in the first half of 2021, down 5.6 percentage points from the first quarter. At the same time, growth for China's Consumer Price Index, the main gauge of inflation in the first half of the year, was 3.3 percentage points lower than the same period last year. A spokesperson for the National Bureau of Statistics says falling food prices are the main reason for the decline.
今年上半年食品价格是下降0.2%。
In the first half of this year, food prices dropped 0.2% year-on-year, compared with a 16.2% rise in the same period last year. Food prices, once the main driver of higher consumer prices, are now the main cause of lower consumer prices.
Data also shows the unemployment rate for urban youth aged 16 to 24 was about 15% in June, up 1.6 percentage points from the previous month. The spokesperson says structural problems in employment are becoming more pronounced.
It
is true that the scale of college graduates this year reached 9.09 million, a record high. The total employment pressure is indeed relatively large.
In general, China's animal husbandry and high-tech manufacturing sectors also rapid growth in the first half of the year. However, the growth rate of the household income was slightly lower than the economic growth rate. Liu Zhiqin, CGTN, Beijing.
And now to further break down China's economic performance during the first half of this year, my colleague Xia Cheng joins me in the studio with more details. Xia Cheng, walk us through the highlights of this economic report for the first half this year.
Right, Zhongshi, I'm going to tell you, the data today would make investors wonder if there's more policy easing ahead. So first, the economy expanded 7.9% from April to June compared to a year ago, slightly missing expectations. Growth slowed significantly from a record 18.3% expansion from January to March. But we have to remember that the first quarter was heavily distorted by the COVID-induced slump from the same period of last year. And economists say that even though the numbers are marginally below market consensus there, the economy's growth momentum remains very strong. An average second quarter growth in 2020 and 2021 was 5.5%, picking up by 0.5% from the first quarter. And industrial activity data, meanwhile, in June showed from the month before, slow from the month before rather, but beat expectations as well. And analysts say high raw material costs, supply shortages, and pollution controls are weighing on industrial activity, while small COVID-19 outbreaks have capped consumer spending. As a result, industrial output was up 8.3% in June, slower than May's reading. And retail sales, meanwhile, jumped 12%, a smaller gain than in May. Both indicators came in better than expected, though. And fixed asset investments grew 12.6% in the first half, and that's stronger than expected, but weaker than in May. Overall, China's slower pace of growth of economic recovery is still clouded by uncertainty ahead and an imbalance in growth, based on the analysis of economist CGTN has spoken to. So they say employment, household spending, consumption, factory investment, service sector, and private companies have yet to return to pre-pandemic levels. And that suggests a possible easing of policies ahead, even though the country wants to move away from pandemic-induced stimulus. But as global economic conditions continue to be murky and domestic economic recovery uneven, analysts expect more support this year, or even a cut in the reserve requirement ratio in the fourth quarter. And that means banks will be more willing to lend to companies to drum up economic activity here in China. Zhongshi.
Xiaocheng, appreciate that live report from you. CGTN Xiaocheng in the studio for us today. China is also experiencing some changes and new models of consumption. The new live stream e-commerce section is now worth close to some 970 billion yuan by the end of last year. But with online habits changing rapidly, it is important online celebrities and influencers are also quickly evolving. Zhang Shixuan has more.
Just a phone, a microphone, and a clothes hanger. That's all Shen Yi had when she started her live stream on social networking site Xiaohongshu. But it's all become normal for her since last August, thanks to her rapid growing fan base. She already has 940,000 fans, and some of her most successful live streams can now generate a revenue of 500,000 yuan.
75% of the products are from brands which contacted me directly through email or Xiaohongshu, but I just focus more on content production, because only if I upload more content that people like can I maintain the followers' loyalty. The key for the live streaming e-commerce is trust from your viewers. I cannot just blindly promote things too frequently.
Through the live stream, Shen is able to answer calling questions from her digital audiences in real time, which significantly enhances their shopping experience and attract more netizens to shop online. She now mainly promotes sports clothing and healthy food through her live streams. Influencers like Shen are KOLs or key opinion leaders in China. They have regular loyal fans and share specialized and professional content, which is more attractive to today's online shoppers.
Usually, I just watch live streams from the hosts that I follow. The KOLs are more persuasive.
I don't have much interest in simple product promotions.
The celebrity incubators that train up the KOLs are busy too. Shanghai-based X Media started training online celebrities several years ago. But it's only since last year that the company started to cast an eye on the live streaming e-commerce business. That was right after the social networking platform Xiaohongshu made e-commerce available on its app. But even in that short time, they've seen subtle changes in their buyers.
Previously, many people were interested in cosmetics products on Xiaohongshu, but this year we've seen a growing trend for snacks and foods. Apart from just beauty, consumers are paying more attention to their daily lives. Sales of food on Xiaohongshu are likely to surpass those of cosmetics.
The company now has signed deals with 300 online celebrities, up 3 times in the last 2 years. One of its most popular celebrities can generate revenue of more than 10 million yuan in just one night. And Xiaohongshu is far from alone. The new business form has proved to be effective on almost all video streaming platforms in China.
On Douyin, many new domestic brands see 70% of their sales from live streaming. Live streaming hosts have become a necessity for brands. Every year, more than 5,000 brands go through an upgrade. And if they all release new products simultaneously, the market will need more than 10,000 hosts. And that's just the figure for the cosmetics sector, not including other categories like daily products, skincare, and baby care.
Last year alone, the company hired more than 30 full-time hosts, and it plans to open 2 new operations in Shanghai this year, which will need a total of 150 full-time live streamers, hosting events from 4 to 8 hours every day. And even that may not be enough. Xia has another almost 2,000 part-time hosts on call, just in case the regular staff isn't enough to fill the live streams. Zhang Shixuan, ICS for CGTN, Shanghai.
And for more insight into China's economy, my guest Liu Zhiqin joins me again. Mr. Liu, China's retail sales of consumer goods jumped 23% in the first half of the year from a year ago. How do you see this as a reflection of the country's new dual circulation development pattern?
As we know, the dual circulation means that the domestic circulation plus the international market circulation. But as we know from the economics theory, the domestic circulation is more important than anything else, especially when China is now facing international market uncertainties, and also some major companies or economics are trying to block China's development. So in this way, this domestic circulation, dual circulation, is becoming more crucial and important for China's further development. Now the China's e-commerce and online sale and offline sale that both are blooming. So in this way, that shows that the good potential that for China's market consumption. You know that China's population is huge. Not only the figures of the population, but the power of consumption is very strong in China. It's still increasing. This is the key point to attract more investors from abroad. So China's consumption future and potentials are inevitable, that unbelievable, that they're too strong. So in this way, the China's development, is especially for the economic development, will be decided mainly by the consumption power development. So in this way, we have to make out more efforts and more friendly, inclusive policies to strengthen, to promote, to stimulate consumption in domestic market. In this way, that we can deal all difficulties and the challenges imposed by uncertainties from international market.
On a quarterly basis, though, people have been quick to point out that the country's GDP grew by just under 8% from April to June, compared to more than 18% in January to March. What do you make of that?
I believe that this figure is already very optimistic. It shows that the confidence of the market in China's development. Of course, the increase in space or range is not so big as expected, but we have to see the other fact. The base number or the base figure of last year and the year before is much higher or bigger. So that's why the increase seems that to be smaller, but it's really, as I said, this is a value-added growth, value-added increase. That means it's already more important, more valuable than the increased number itself, because the quality and the pattern of the growth has been greatly changed. So in this way, the GDP's growth in this moment is quite satisfied with the demands and the supply chain. So I hope that in the next 6 months, the rest of the year, China will do its utmost to promote and stimulate the growth of economic development, especially the real economy, and the SMEs development will have more important function in China's future development of economy, especially the modernization of the technologies.
Mr. Liu, I appreciate your expertise as always. Thank you so much for making time for us today. Chinese President Xi Jinping